We live on a restless planet. Beneath our cities, our homes, and our feet, colossal plates of rock grind against each other, building up stress over centuries.
Perfect.
When that stress is released in a matter of seconds, the world shakes. The consequences can be catastrophic, rewriting landscapes and shattering lives. For as long as we've built cities near these active fault lines, we've lived under the shadow of one terrifying question. When will the next big one strike? But what if we didn't have to just wait? What if we could do something about it? This leads to a tantalizing and deeply controversial idea. Quick question: can a bunch of tiny intentional earthquakes stop a single, big, devastating one? The short answer: not reliably. And the attempt to do so is fraught with immense risk and profound ethical questions. To understand why, we first need to journey deep into the earth and understand the fundamental mechanics of a fault. Imagine two colossal pieces of Earth's crust trying to slide past one another. They aren't smooth, they're jagged, rough, and locked together by immense friction. As the tectonic engine drives them, the rock bends and deforms, storing energy like a coiled spring. This stored energy is called strain. For years, decades, or even centuries, friction wins. The fault remains locked, but the stress continues to build relentlessly. Eventually, the accumulated stress overcomes the friction. The fault ruptures. The rock snaps back into place in a violent release of energy. This is an earthquake. This stick-slip behavior is the engine of seismic hazards. So, the idea of preventing a big one seems logical. If we can just encourage the fault to slip a little bit at a time, we could bleed off that stress gently. It sounds intuitive, and we have parallels in other fields. We use controlled burns to clear out dry underbrush, preventing the fuel buildup that leads to catastrophic mega wildfires. Ski patrols trigger small, predictable avalanches to stabilize snowpacks and protect skiers from a massive, deadly slide. In both cases, we are proactively releasing stored energy in a controlled way. So why can't we do the same with earthquakes? Because faults aren't forests or snowpacks. A forest's fuel load is visible on the surface. A snowpack's layers can be tested. A fault is a complex, three-dimensional system hidden miles underground, governed by physics and scales that are almost impossible to fully comprehend, let alone control. Our first hard lessons in this came not from trying to prevent earthquakes, but by accidentally causing them. In the 1960s, the Rocky Mountain Arsenal near Denver, Colorado, drilled a deep well to dispose of toxic waste fluid. Soon after injections began, the area, which was not known for seismic activity, started experiencing earthquakes. Seismologists noticed a direct correlation. When they pumped more fluid, they got more quakes. When they stopped, the quakes tapered off. They had discovered induced seismicity. The injected fluid was seeping into a pre-existing ancient fault, increasing the fluid pressure in the rock's pores. This pore pressure effectively lubricated the fault, allowing it to slip under the existing tectonic stress. They had inadvertently woken a sleeping giant. This phenomenon exploded into public consciousness in the 2010s in the central United States. Oklahoma went from averaging 2 magnitude 3 or greater earthquakes per year to more than 900 in 2015. The cause was the same principle as the arsenal, but on an industrial scale: the disposal of massive volumes of wastewater, a byproduct of oil and gas extraction, into deep wells. This triggered swarms of earthquakes, including the state's largest ever recorded, a magnitude 5.8 in 2016, that caused significant damage. And it's not just wastewater. The immense weight of water in new reservoirs behind large dams has been shown to trigger quakes, a phenomenon called reservoir-induced seismicity. Even green energy projects are not immune. Geothermal energy works by pumping water into hot rock deep underground to create steam. In 2006, a project in Basel, Switzerland, was shut down after its injections triggered a magnitude 3.4 earthquake that caused millions of dollars in damage and terrified the city. These events are accidental experiments reveal a chilling truth. It is dangerously easy to nudge a fault, but impossible to control what happens next. Here's precisely why the strategy of controlled rupture breaks down. It fails on three fundamental levels: connectivity, scale, and knowledge. First, faults are not isolated. They are part of vast interconnected networks. Think of it like a series of dominoes. Relieving stress in one small spot by creating a tiny quake doesn't make the stress vanish. It redistributes it. You might calm one patch, but in doing so, you could be adding the final straw of stress to a neighboring segment, a segment that is much larger and already close to failure. You could inadvertently prime a bigger, more dangerous rupture. Second, there is a staggering mismatch in scale. The energy released by an earthquake doesn't increase linearly, it's logarithmic. A magnitude 7 earthquake releases nearly 1,000 times more energy than a magnitude 5. To release the stress equivalent to one single magnitude 7 megaquake, you would need to generate roughly 32,000 magnitude 4 quakes. Triggering tens of thousands of noticeable, potentially damaging quakes is not a practical or safe solution. Furthermore, the big, devastating earthquakes don't start with tiny slips at the surface. They originate from the rupture of huge, deeply buried, and strongly locked patches of the fault. Making the surface creep along doesn't guarantee you've done anything to defuse the real-time bomb miles below. Third, and most critically, our knowledge is incomplete. Thresholds are unpredictable. We simply do not know the precise state of stress on most faults. We don't know exactly how close a segment is to failure. Is it teetering on the absolute brink, where the slightest nudge will send it over the edge? Or does it have a large stress budget remaining? Without knowing this, any intentional intervention is like performing surgery blindfolded. The small, controlled slip you intended to create could be the very nudge that initiates an unstoppable cascading rupture, the exact megaquake you were trying to prevent. The unpredictability is the core problem. So, is the idea dead? Not quite. Researchers aren't trying to trigger quakes, but they are intensely studying induced seismicity to understand the physics better. The holy grail isn't triggering small quakes, but encouraging something called aseismic slip, movement along a fault that occurs slowly and quietly, without generating any damaging seismic waves. Some faults do this naturally. The question is, could we encourage it? Could we inject fluids not to fracture rock, but to allow a fault to creep along harmlessly? This is a frontier of seismology, but it is purely experimental, decades away from any potential application, and carries many of the same risks. So if we can't diffuse earthquakes, what can we do? The answer is to focus on resilience, not control. This is where we are making real, life-saving progress. Earthquake early warning systems can provide precious seconds to minutes of notice, allowing trains to stop, surgeries to halt, and people to take cover. The single most effective lifesaver is robust engineering, enforcing strong building codes for new construction and retrofitting older, vulnerable buildings to withstand shaking. We can use smart land use planning, avoiding construction directly on top of active faults or on soft soils that amplify shaking. And we can empower the public through preparedness, education, drills, and building resilient utility and communication networks. Finally, there is a profound ethical and legal barrier. Imagine a government or a company attempts this. They trigger a series of controlled magnitude 4 earthquakes to prevent a magnitude 7. But one of those magnitude 4s happens directly under a hospital, causing damage and panic. Who is responsible? What if, despite their efforts, the big one happens anyway? Or worse, what if their intervention is proven to have triggered it? The legal liability would be astronomical. More importantly, no community would, or should, give informed consent to a procedure where the potential for catastrophic failure is not only present, but fundamentally unknowable. The dream of taming the earth beneath our feet, of turning a megaquake into 1,000 tiny tremors, is a testament to human ingenuity and our desire to control our destiny. but the planet's geological forces operate on a scale beyond our command. The lessons from a half-century of accidental and intentional Earth tinkering are clear. We cannot reliably control earthquakes. Our focus must remain on what we can control: how we build, how we prepare, and how we adapt. The path to a safer future lies not in trying to stop the shaking, but in learning to live wisely with a world that will never stand completely still.